In the world of country music, rumors have always traveled faster than the twang of a steel guitar. Some were dismissed as wild gossip, others whispered in smoky bars across Nashville. But every now and then, the whispers turned out to be true, shocking even the most loyal fans. From secret addictions to backstage betrayals and eerie premonitions of death, these stories reveal the darker, hidden side of country legends. Johnny Cash, the prison truth behind the man in black. When people first heard the rumor that Johnny Cash had been arrested multiple times, many dismissed it as another exaggeration about the outlaw image he carried so well. Cash was known for his deep voice, rebellious songs, and the iconic man in black persona. But behind the legend, there was a reality even darker than his stage persona suggested. The rumor wasn't just true, it was more shocking than anyone imagined. Cash's battles with addiction began in the late 1950s. Fame brought him wealth, but also pills and alcohol that quickly spiraled out of control. In 1965, whispers began circulating in Nashville. Cash had been arrested for carrying hundreds of pills across the Mexican border. Fans didn't want to believe it. Surely the man who sang gospel records and family ballads wasn't caught up in such chaos. But the story broke wide open when police reports revealed Cash had indeed been arrested in El Paso, caught with a guitar case full of amphetamines and tranquilizers. This was not an isolated event. Over the years, Cash was arrested 7 different times for drug-related charges, public intoxication, and reckless behavior. The outlaw image he sang about in songs like Folsom Prison Blues wasn't just an act. He was living that life, teetering dangerously close to destroying his career. Stories of him collapsing on stage, trashing hotel rooms, and vanishing on drug binges circulated throughout the industry. Many assumed they were exaggerations, yet court records, mugshots, and his own confessions proved them to be chillingly real. But the irony was that his troubles gave birth to some of his greatest work. When he performed for inmates at Folsom Prison in 1968, the rumors about his arrests gave him credibility no other star could match. The prisoners respected him because he understood their world, not as an observer, but as someone who had tasted the edge of freedom and captivity himself. The shocking truth of Johnny Cash's arrests did not end his career. Instead, they shaped his legend. He eventually found redemption, cleaning up his addictions and transforming into one of country music's most respected figures. Yet, the fact remains, the rumor of Johnny Cash's arrests wasn't gossip. It was cold, hard truth. And it forever etched the man in black as both a cautionary tale and a symbol of survival. Tammy Wynette, the mysterious attack that haunts Nashville. In 1978, Nashville was shaken by one of the strangest stories to ever come out of country music. Tammy Wynette, the First Lady of Country, was found bruised and shaken after claiming she had been kidnapped and attacked by a masked man near her home. The rumor that swirled almost instantly was darker. Many whispered that her ex-husband, George Jones, might have been behind it. At first, fans couldn't believe the headlines. Wynette had divorced George Jones in 1975, after years of a turbulent marriage filled with alcohol abuse, public fights, and reconciliations that never seemed to last. By 1978, their relationship was long over, yet whispers in Nashville bars suggested Jones still harbored anger and obsession. So when Tammy appeared with visible injuries and a dramatic story of being abducted, suspicion quickly turned toward the possum himself. Wynette's own account added to the mystery. She told police that she had been forced into a car at gunpoint, beaten, and left on the side of the road. But inconsistencies in her story raised eyebrows. Why had she driven herself home before contacting authorities? Why was there no solid evidence of the kidnapper? And why did she later refuse to cooperate fully with investigators? The rumor of George Jones's involvement only grew louder. Some in Nashville whispered that Wynette fabricated the story to cover up a domestic altercation, while others were convinced Jones's violent temper was to blame. But Jones, despite his public struggles with alcohol, always denied having anything to do with the incident. "I'd never lay a hand on her like that," he insisted in interviews. Years later, Wynette herself continued to stick to the abduction story, though her daughters and close friends cast doubt. One daughter, Jackie Daly, claimed in her memoir that the attack was likely staged by Wynette herself as a desperate cry for attention during a difficult time in her career. Others believed the truth was somewhere in between, a real assault, but perhaps not the one Wynette described. Regardless of the conflicting narratives, one thing was clear. The rumor surrounding Wynette's mysterious attack was not baseless gossip. She was undeniably injured, and her haunting appearance on television at the time made the nation gasp. Whether it was a staged incident, a violent encounter covered up, or a bizarre crime that was never solved, the story confirmed the darker undercurrents of Nashville life. The shocking truth is that even decades later, no one knows for sure what really happened that night. But the rumor that Tammy Wynette's tragedy was not as simple as it seemed has never gone away, and it continues to be one of country music's most chilling mysteries. George Jones, the lawnmower ride that became country lore. Few stories in country music history sound as outrageous as the rumor of George Jones riding a lawnmower 8 miles down a Texas highway just to buy liquor. At first, even his most loyal fans laughed it off. Surely this was another tall tale, an exaggerated anecdote born from Jones's reputation as one of Nashville's wildest drinkers. But in this case, the rumor turned out to be not only true, it was confirmed by Jones himself. The story begins in the early 1970s, during Jones's troubled marriage to fellow country star Tammy Wynette. By this point, Jones's drinking was legendary. He was notorious for missing concerts, disappearing for days on benders, and leaving behind chaos in his wake. In a desperate attempt to save her husband from himself, Wynette hid the keys to every vehicle he owned, cars, trucks, even motorcycles, hoping to prevent him from making yet another trip to the liquor store. But George Jones was not a man easily stopped. In his 1996 autobiography, I Lived to Tell It All, Jones recalled the night vividly. Stranded at home in Lakeland, Tennessee, he looked outside and saw his only means of transportation, a small John Deere riding lawnmower parked by the house. Determined to get a bottle of whiskey, Jones mounted the mower and slowly drove the 8 miles into town, crawling down the highway at 5 miles per hour while cars honked and passed him by. Jones later wrote, "I imagine the top speed for that old mower was 5 miles per hour. It might have taken an hour and a half or more for me to get to the liquor store, but get there I did." His words turned the once ridiculous rumor into certified truth. What might have been a shameful episode instead became one of the most famous stories in country music lore. Fans and fellow artists alike repeated it endlessly, half in disbelief and half in admiration of Jones's determination. The incident symbolized both his addiction and his humor, the tragic and the comic woven together in a single image of a superstar crawling down a highway on a lawnmower. For many, the lawnmower ride epitomized the self-destructive path Jones often walked. His alcohol abuse nearly ruined his career, led to financial ruin, and destroyed his marriages. Yet it also reinforced the mythos of George Jones as No-Show Jones, the man who lived larger, wilder, and more recklessly than anyone else in country music. In the end, the rumor of George Jones's lawnmower adventure was more than just gossip. It became a lasting piece of Nashville folklore, an unforgettable snapshot of how addiction, desperation, and sheer stubbornness collided to create one of the most shocking true stories in country history. Hank Williams, the Cadillac death that shook country music, on New Year's Day. 1953, the world of country music was rocked by the sudden death of Hank Williams, the Hillbilly Shakespeare. Official reports listed the cause as heart failure. But almost immediately, rumors began to spread through Nashville. Hank hadn't died of natural causes. He had died in the back seat of his Cadillac, his body poisoned by a deadly cocktail of alcohol and drugs. Williams was just 29 years old, yet his health was already failing. Years of relentless touring, chronic back pain from spina bifida, and a dependency on alcohol and morphine had left him frail and erratic. Fans adored his heartfelt songs like I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, but behind the microphone, Williams was unraveling. His erratic behavior, missed shows, and public collapses became fodder for whispers. By late 1952, he was dismissed by the Grand Ole Opry, and the rumors of his drug and alcohol abuse reached a fever pitch. On that fateful night, Williams was scheduled to perform in Canton, Ohio. He hired a young college student, Charles Carr, to drive him in his powder blue Cadillac. Along the way, Williams complained of pain and was reportedly injected with morphine by a local doctor in West Virginia. Carr later recalled that Hank grew quiet in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket against the freezing cold. Hours later, when Carr pulled into a gas station in Oak Hill, West Virginia, he discovered Hank was unresponsive. The official death certificate stated heart failure as the cause, but the autopsy told a darker story. His body contained significant levels of alcohol and morphine. Suddenly, the rumors were confirmed. Hank Williams had not died peacefully, but from a lethal mix of substances that his weakened body could no longer withstand. For fans, the truth was both shocking and heartbreaking. Hank Williams had sung of loneliness, heartbreak, and despair with an authenticity that no one could fake. Now, it was clear that those songs weren't just art. They were reflections of his own tortured life. The Cadillac Death became an enduring image, the greatest voice of his generation, silenced alone in the back of a car, at the very moment he should have been stepping into a new year. The rumor that Hank's death was caused by drugs and alcohol turned out to be the grim reality, and it transformed his passing from a tragic accident into a haunting symbol of the price of fame, and cementing his place as one of country music's most legendary and most tragic figures. In the early 1960s, Patsy Cline was at the height of her fame. With hits like Crazy and I Fall to Pieces, she was redefining country music with her smooth voice and crossover appeal. But among friends and fellow musicians in Nashville, whispers followed her everywhere. Patsy believed she was destined to die young, and she spoke openly about it. At first, people dismissed it as morbid talk from a woman under pressure. But the rumor that she had eerie premonitions of her own death turned out to be chillingly true. Cline had already endured brushes with mortality. In 1961, she survived a near-fatal car accident that left her with broken ribs, a dislocated hip, and scars on her face. While recovering in the hospital, she reportedly told friends, "I've been there once already, and I'm not coming out of the next one alive." Her words haunted those who heard them. Over the next 2 years, Cline's talk about dying became more frequent. She confided in close friends like Loretta Lynn and Dottie West that she felt her days were numbered. She even went so far as to write out her will, making sure her children would be taken care of should anything happen to her. One letter she penned to her mother included the chilling line, "When my time is up, my time is up." By early 1963, the rumors about Patsy's premonitions had spread beyond her inner circle. Nashville insiders joked nervously about her fatalism, but many were unsettled. Cline brushed off their concern, insisting she simply knew she wouldn't live to grow old. Tragically, her words proved prophetic. On March 5, 1963, Patsy boarded a small plane after performing a benefit concert in Kansas City. The weather was poor, the skies turbulent. Despite warnings, she insisted on flying home. Just outside of Camden, Tennessee, the plane went down, killing all on board. Patsy Cline was only 30 years old. When news of her death broke, those earlier rumors resurfaced with terrifying clarity. Loretta Lynn later confirmed that Patsy had spoken often of dying, recounting one chilling moment when Cline told her, "Hoss, I can't shake this feeling. Something bad is coming, and I don't think I'll be here much longer." The shocking truth was that Patsy Cline's premonitions weren't just idle talk. They were a haunting thread woven into her final years, leaving behind one of the most unsettling mysteries in country music. Her voice may have been silenced far too soon, but her eerie predictions made her death feel like fate, a legend both tragic and unforgettable. Willie Nelson, lighting up on the White House roof. When it comes to Willie Nelson, wild stories are almost expected. Over the decades, he's been tied to countless tales of rowdy nights, backstage antics, and his famous love affair with marijuana. But one rumor stood out among them all, that Willie Nelson actually smoked a joint on the roof of the White House. For years, it sounded like an outrageous joke, a hippie fantasy. And yet, this rumor turned out to be astonishingly true. The story dates back to September 1978 during the presidency of Jimmy Carter. Nelson was invited to perform at the White House for a concert event, as Carter was known to be a genuine fan of country music. Nelson, always at ease in unusual company, spent the day mingling with politicians and dignitaries. But it was what happened after the show that sparked whispers throughout Nashville and Washington alike. According to Nelson, he was approached by a member of the Secret Service, or, as later clarified, one of President Carter's sons, who invited him to take a walk up to the White House roof. Under the dark night sky, overlooking the city lights of Washington, D.C., Nelson pulled out a joint and lit up. There I was, smoking marijuana on the roof of the White House, he later confessed in his 1988 autobiography, Willie, an Autobiography. At first, many readers thought it was just Willie spinning another tall tale, but the confirmation came years later. Carter's son, Chip, admitted publicly that he was Nelson's companion that night. He recalled sharing the moment with a mix of nerves and excitement, knowing full well the risk. The White House, one of the most secure and scrutinized buildings in the world, became the backdrop for what has to be one of the most audacious acts in country music history. For fans, the story elevated Nelson's outlaw image to mythic levels. He wasn't just defying Nashville's conservative expectations. He was defying the ultimate symbol of authority, right in its own backyard. And unlike many rumors that exposed darker sides of country stars, this one became a badge of honor, adding to Willie's legend as both rebel and folk hero. The shocking truth? Willie Nelson really did smoke marijuana on the roof of the White House. It was more than just a rumor. It was an unforgettable collision of country music, politics, and counterculture. Decades later, the story remains one of Nashville's favorite pieces of lore, reminding fans that when it comes to Willie Nelson, the wildest stories are often the truest. Glen Campbell, the cocaine addiction. He couldn't hide for years. Glen Campbell was celebrated as the Rhinestone Cowboy, a polished, clean-cut performer who brought country music to mainstream America. His boyish charm and crossover hits made him seem untouchable. But behind the glittering image, rumors swirled throughout Nashville and Los Angeles. Campbell was hooked on cocaine, and his addiction was spiraling out of control. Fans resisted believing it at first. How could America's golden cowboy be caught up in such a dark world? But the shocking truth emerged, and it was undeniable. Campbell's descent into cocaine use began in the 1970s, when success hit him at full force. With chart-topping singles, television specials, and sold-out tours, he was suddenly mixing with Hollywood's elite. The rumor that Campbell was indulging in the same dangerous lifestyle as rock stars grew louder after he was frequently spotted at wild parties, his behavior increasingly erratic. By the late 1970s, Campbell's once flawless performances were marred by missed shows and slurred vocals, clear signs something was wrong. The whispers became fact in the 1980s, when Campbell himself admitted to long-term cocaine abuse. In interviews, he described nights lost in drug binges, often accompanied by heavy drinking. His relationship with fellow singer Tanya Tucker became notorious, marked by volatility and fueled by substance abuse. Their explosive fights and tabloid scandals only added fuel to the rumors, painting a picture of a man unraveling. Campbell later confessed that at the height of his addiction, he was consuming staggering amounts of cocaine daily, spending fortunes to maintain the habit. The drug not only drained his finances, but also pushed him into a destructive cycle that nearly ended his career. He described those years as a roller coaster of self-destruction, where fame masked the chaos behind the curtain. What made the rumor especially shocking was how far it was from the public image Campbell had cultivated. To the outside world, he was the wholesome star of the Glen Campbell Good Time Hour and the voice behind beloved country ballads. But in reality, he was battling the same demons that destroyed so many in the entertainment industry. Eventually, Campbell sought redemption. In the mid-1980s, he entered rehab, got clean, and re-embraced his faith. He spoke candidly about his cocaine addiction in his memoirs, confirming that the wild rumors Nashville had once whispered were indeed true. His openness turned the scandal into a cautionary tale, and fans respected him all the more for surviving it. The truth about Glen Campbell's cocaine abuse shocked many, but it also revealed the human vulnerability behind the Rhinestone Cowboy's glittering smile. His story proved that even the brightest stars in country music could fall victim to fame's darkest temptations and still find their way back. Loretta Lynn, the song Nashville tried to silence. In the 1970s, Loretta Lynn was already a groundbreaking figure in country music. Known for her raw honesty and songs that spoke directly to working-class women, she never shied away from controversy. But when rumors began circulating that one of her songs had been banned from dozens of radio stations for being too scandalous, fans weren't sure what to believe. Could Nashville really be silencing the queen of country music? The truth was even more shocking. It was all real. The song in question was The Pill, released in 1975. At a time when women's rights and reproductive freedom were still taboo topics in conservative America, Loretta dared to sing about birth control. The lyrics celebrated the freedom that came with the pill, allowing women to enjoy intimacy without the constant fear of unplanned pregnancies. For millions of women, it was a bold anthem. For Nashville's traditional gatekeepers, it was an outrage. Almost immediately, the backlash was fierce. More than 60 country radio stations across the South banned the track, claiming it was immoral and inappropriate. Preachers denounced it from the pulpit. Industry insiders whispered that Loretta had gone too far. Some critics even predicted that the controversy might end her career. To many, it seemed unthinkable that a country star would openly endorse such a progressive and controversial idea. But while radio tried to silence her, the rumor that the song was being banned only made it more popular. Women across the nation bought the single in droves, making it one of Loretta's biggest commercial hits. As she later admitted, rural women who had little access to doctors were learning about birth control for the first time through her music. Loretta herself, who had 6 children by her early 30s, understood the struggles of motherhood all too well. In interviews years later, Loretta Lynn confirmed the truth. Yes, the song had been banned. And yes, she had no regrets. If I'd had the pill back when I was having babies, she said, I would have taken it too. Her candor not only validated the rumors, but also cemented her reputation as one of the bravest voices in country music. The shocking truth is that the pill was too real for its time. It challenged tradition, broke barriers, and proved that Loretta Lynn wasn't just a country singer. She was a cultural force. Nashville may have tried to silence her, but in doing so, they made her louder than ever. Merle Haggard, from San Quentin to country legend. For much of his career, Merle Haggard was celebrated as the poet of the working man, a voice for the outlaws, misfits, and underdogs of America. Songs like Mama Tried and Sing Me Back Home carried such raw authenticity that listeners often wondered, had Haggard himself really lived that life? The rumor was persistent. Merle Haggard hadn't just sung about prison, he had actually served hard time. Fans debated it for years, some believing it was part of his crafted outlaw image. But the shocking truth? Every word was real. Merle's troubled youth in California set the stage. After his father's death, he became rebellious, skipping school, hitchhiking, and eventually getting into petty crime. By his late teens, Haggard had already been in and out of juvenile detention centers. The rumor escalated when word spread that he'd spent time in one of the toughest prisons in America, San Quentin. Many dismissed it as exaggerated folklore meant to sell records. But Haggard himself later confirmed it. He had been sentenced to San Quentin in 1957 after a botched robbery. At just 20 years old, Haggard entered the notorious penitentiary, sharing space with hardened criminals. He later recalled the fear and despair of those years, admitting that he had been on a fast track to ruin. The turning point came in 1959 when he witnessed the execution of a fellow inmate. The chilling experience left him shaken, a moment he would later describe as a wake-up call that changed the course of his life. The rumor gained legendary status when Johnny Cash performed at San Quentin in 1959. Although Haggard wasn't in the audience that night, contrary to popular myth, he was in the prison at the time. Cash's rebellious energy inspired him deeply, planting the idea that he, too, could channel his pain and mistakes into music. Haggard was released in 1960, but the prison years never left him. Instead, they became the foundation of his artistry. When he later sang about regret, redemption, and the weight of a criminal past, listeners felt the truth in every word. The rumor that he had lived his lyrics wasn't just true, it became part of what made his music timeless. Far from destroying his reputation, Haggard's prison past gave him unmatched credibility. In an era when authenticity mattered most, he wasn't just telling stories, he was bearing scars. The shocking truth is that Merle Haggard's time in San Quentin turned him from a wayward outlaw into one of country music's most enduring legends, proving that even the darkest roads can lead to redemption. Dolly Parton, the million-dollar insurance rumor that sparked Nashville. For decades, Dolly Parton has been the most instantly recognizable face in country music, not just for her voice and songwriting genius, but for her glamorous, larger-than-life image. Among the countless rumors that have swirled around her, one has always stood out, that Dolly had taken out a $1 million insurance policy on her most famous physical feature, her iconic figure. At first, many dismissed it as a joke, a tabloid exaggeration. But soon, the rumor gained traction and became one of the most talked-about stories in Nashville. The rumor first surfaced in the late 1970s, when Dolly was transitioning from country superstar to crossover celebrity in Hollywood. Her signature look, towering blonde wigs, sparkling gowns, and her famously voluptuous silhouette was not just part of her image. It was her brand. Journalists began whispering that Lloyd's of London, the same company that insured celebrities' legs, hands, and voices, had insured Dolly's figure for $1 million. Fans laughed, but they also believed it. After all, Dolly herself never seemed to shy away from poking fun at her image. In interviews, Dolly fueled the rumor with her trademark humor. When asked about the supposed insurance policy, she quipped, "It's true. I had to do it. After all, they're very precious to me." With that, the story caught fire. For many, her tongue-in-cheek response was proof enough. The rumor spread far beyond Nashville, making headlines in national magazines and talk shows. The shocking truth? While Dolly has never confirmed an official policy with paperwork, she has openly admitted to playing along with the rumor, and even hinted it was real. In later years, she told reporters, "You never know what's insured these days, honey. If it makes people smile, I'm not going to deny it." Whether literal or symbolic, the rumor worked brilliantly in Dolly's favor. It turned what could have been a scandal into another chapter of her playful, self-aware persona. More importantly, the rumor cemented Dolly's mastery of her own image. In an industry that often exploited women for their looks, Dolly flipped the script, making her appearance a brand, a business, and, if the rumor is true, an asset worth millions. In the end, the truth is that Dolly Parton never let the gossip hurt her. Instead, she leaned into it, proving once again that she was always in control of the joke. The $1 million insurance story wasn't just a rumor. It was a reflection of Dolly's brilliance at turning even the wildest tales into part of her legend. Kristofferson, the helicopter stunt that launched a career. Among the wildest rumors in Nashville's history is the story that a young, unknown Kristofferson once landed a helicopter in Johnny Cash's yard to deliver a demo tape. It sounded more like a tall tale than reality. An aspiring songwriter flying into the backyard of country's biggest outlaw just to get noticed? Yet, to the amazement of fans and fellow musicians alike, this outrageous rumor turned out to be shockingly true. In the late 1960s, Kristofferson was struggling. A former Rhodes Scholar and Army pilot, he had given up a promising military career to chase his dream of songwriting in Nashville. The decision left him broke, working odd jobs, including sweeping floors at Columbia Studios, just to stay close to the music business. He was writing brilliant songs, but no one seemed willing to give him a chance. That's when Kristofferson decided to gamble everything. Drawing on his Army training as a helicopter pilot, he borrowed a National Guard chopper and set out for Hendersonville, Tennessee, where Johnny Cash lived on a sprawling property by Old Hickory Lake. Without clearance, Kristofferson flew the helicopter directly onto Cash's lawn, terrifying the Man in Black's family and neighbors. Cash, reportedly at home, looked out to see a helicopter parked outside with a young man climbing out, clutching a tape in his hand. As Kristofferson himself later admitted, it was an act of pure desperation. "I just wanted him to hear my songs," he explained. At first, Cash thought it was a prank or even a government agent coming to arrest him. But when Kristofferson nervously handed over the demo, Cash listened and was impressed. One of those songs, "Sunday Morning Comin' Down," became a career-defining hit for Cash, earning him a CMA award in 1970. The shocking truth was that the helicopter story wasn't just rumor. It became part of country music legend. Kristofferson's bold stunt wasn't only about reckless ambition, it symbolized the hunger and risk-taking that defined Nashville's most enduring stars. Had it gone wrong, he could have been arrested, court-martialed, or blacklisted. Instead, it changed his life forever. For Kristofferson, the gamble paid off beyond imagination. He went on to become one of the most respected songwriters of his era, penning classics like Help Me Make It Through the Night and Me and Bobby McGee. And it all began with that infamous helicopter landing. The rumor of Kris Kristofferson's outrageous stunt was not gossip. It was the boldest truth Nashville had ever seen. It proved that sometimes, in country music, you had to risk everything to make your voice heard. And Kristofferson's gamble became one of the most unforgettable moments in country history.